So, without talking much about it, I'll quickly get on to introducing our next speaker, Mr. Anil Kumar Misra, who is Vice President and Chief People Officer at MagicBricks. Uh, Mr. Mishra is a human resources leader with over 22 years of experience across diverse industries, from manufacturing to hospitality, e-commerce, and consumer internet services. His professional goal is to bring a positive change to the lives of his colleagues and act as an enabler in the journey to become a better professional. And the topic that he'll be talking on today is attracting Gen Z, which is very interesting topic with the kind of workforce that we really need for the future. So, sir, on to you. Uh, I'll just pass it over to you. Take over the session.
Thank you, Saurabh. Thank you for being a fantastic host and really appreciate your intro. And thanks for making me feel like a celebrity with that wonderful intro. Always a pleasure, sharing thoughts around Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z. And till yesterday, we were talking about millennials, but off late we have started also talking about what excites, how do we retain, specifically the emerging talent who are likely to join our workforces. I guess already roughly around the globe, 24% of our total workforce is dominated by Gen Z today. But most of the HR professionals still they're grappling with the issue of what exactly excites them. Who are these Gen Z? How are their style of working and their degree of passion? How are they different? So these are multiple questions that we have in back of our mind. And in the next 30 minutes or so, I wish to give a complete preamble to the multi generational workforce and how management of this workforce is also going through a drastic change right now. That would be the intent for me in the next 30 minutes.
Okay.
The good news is I do not have any PowerPoint presentations, so I'll try and make it as interactive as I can. And for that, I have got few sub themes in the back of my mind. Hopefully, that will do justice in clarifying who are these Gen Z, what is their dominating style of working, without exactly stereotyping them. Because strongly, I also believe even if I'm a baby boomer or Gen X or Gen Y, end of the day, this is a mindset. My physiological or chronological age might be different, but how there are people who can very fast cope up with the required change, and hence they have started thinking, behaving, and acting like a Gen Z. Who if you look at the age limit, probably 95 till 2015. So roughly around anybody whose physiological age today is 5 to 25 fits into this category. So that's the plan, Saurabh. You want me to take it ahead? Continue? Okay. So let's do one thing. As I said, till very recent past, we have been talking about millennials, what excites them, and these are the people who are occupying roughly around 70% of the total workforce is they belong to millennial category. But all of sudden, very recently we have started also talking about Gen Z, and as I said, their age profile is somewhere between 5 to 25 years. Now, globally, for the sake of repeating what I said, globally it is 24% of the total workforce that consists of Gen Z. And if you talk about Indian workplace scenario, 472 million people are already who are Gen Z are in the workforce. Now, I strongly believe it is very, very unfair to stereotype people and identify certain characteristics in terms of who are this Gen Z. But let me try and draw a large parallel to this, and probably I will try and explain what are those identifiable characteristics. In that scheme of thing, as we all know, these are also the bunch of people who were born and brought up in digital era. And just to add to this, digital era where internet speed was very, very high. So from that tech savviness standpoint, one differentiator is definitely they have this competitive advantage. They don't find this as a challenge, just like any other probably baby boomer or the next category of people. Number two, these are the group of people who would not hesitate if they have a difference of opinion. They would stand up and challenge the status quo. Unlike probably if I talk about my dad, or probably up to an extent my generation, probably there is a little bit of hesitation. How am I going to be perceived if I'm asking questions, if I'm challenging the status quo? As against that, these guys are completely very, very open in terms of their approach. They would stand up and they would challenge the status quo. That's very, very natural to Gen Z. Third differentiator is in terms of respect. One myth is Gen Z are not good, when it comes to respecting, age-old practices, or respecting your authority, or respecting your age. Strongly, I believe, if we know how to actually, help them out, if we can make their life easier, then Gen Z will be a category who would start respecting you. So the long story cut short, one more identifiable characteristic of Gen Z is they are not here to respect the vested authority. If you as an individual is their natural go-to person, or if you as an individual can make my life easier, then by default you command that respect. So that's one more difference that we normally see in young bunch of people in 0 to 5 category, 0 to 25 years category, called Gen Z. Now, workplace behavior. Again, you cannot bind this group of people, specifically, Gen Z, saying that, hey, you know what, you need to punch in around 9 o'clock and your punch out would happen not before 6 or 6:30. That does not excite them. People in this category would want more of flexibility, or rather, they would be more effective when you give them more empowerment, more freedom, more accountability. Tell them how their contribution is aligned to the big picture. At the same time, give them more flexibility. People would probably want to operate from the wonderful beaches of Goa, so long as they fulfill their objective. Then that should suffice. That's the counter narrative, counter argument that Gen Z normally brings to the table. Fair enough, logical enough. So that is one more mindset. Probably because of that, strongly I believe the future would be for gig economy. And mind you, globally, when we talk about gig economy, it's a $250 billion industry. And very happy to let you know that India features among the top 5. So after US, China, Japan, Mexico, 5th position is by India. So what it means is we were already using gig workers in our day-to-day work life across levels. And that, to me, I'm seeing the trend going higher, precisely for 2 reasons. That baby boomers who are 40 plus already, the mindset is, okay, I've been there, done that. I need to start something on my own. Second problem statement there is, I'm already sitting at a very high salary bracket. So there are multiple people available who can come and join at 50% or half my salary. So it's more of a win-win proposition for corporates, for potential hiring managers. And that is one challenge. On the contrary, these young people They do not, and they are not married to any one company. They want more flexibility. And hence, it's more of a win win proposition for both employer as well as the service providers, specifically in this case, the Gen Z. And hence, my prediction for the future is gig economy is going to be very, very big, and Gen Z would be more keen to get into a gig kind of an assignment where it gives them more of a flexibility. Now, one more thing is performance management. Now, cut to baby boomers. Performance management, by and large, the annual appraisal system used to be once a year kind of a ritual. Objective setting process was very, very vague. In a sense, what do you exactly expect out of your incumbents, your colleagues, was not probably articulated and documented to the extent they are available today. And further cut to Gen Z, which is roughly 30% of our workplace population today in India, 30 to 35%. They would want the job clarity has to be 100%. They would want the manager to take out time, consult them in terms of their strengths, their area of improvement, and their area that they feel very, very passionate about. So it's better, they expect that the manager to have discussion around that, post that, set up objective. And interestingly, the performance feedback, they do not have the patience, and they feel it is unfair, it is non-transparent way if you do not make that feedback process an ongoing mechanism. Meaning, even if they are working on a project which is for about a fortnight, for about a week, they would expect the manager to give feedback around how they have delivered. And we have borrowed ideas from this, and in most of the learning organizations, even now in India, have got this quarterly performance tracking mechanism, and they make sure that the performance related feedback are given to those incumbents on a weekly basis. And these are very, very important changes in the performance management system that we are seeing. Now, talking about Gen Z, their expectation is the performance feedback has to be instantaneous. I would not like to take any feedback which comes to me as a surprise after 6 months, after a year. Then probably the perception would be, my manager is not fair. My manager or the entire organization's performance management process is not transparent enough. And hence the trick is giving those Gen Yers more and more feedback, which is performance related feedback, which is instantaneous. Now, one interesting thing, when I said these are the people born in digital era when the internet speed was very high, then definitely these are the social aspect of Gen Z is very, very high. In a sense, probably I was very comfortable using Facebook. Probably my dad was not very comfortable even using Facebook. That time it was not available, but even now, probably a little bit of struggle there. But when it comes to Gen Z, who are 5 to 25 in that age bracket, for them Facebook is also old and outdated way of socially ensuring you are present. For them, what matters is probably Snapchat, probably other stuff which is very, very modern and which is very, very new. Or specifically, that is one change that I'm seeing in Gen Z category. And now, if these are some of the identifiable characteristics, then we also need to know how the workforce typically has gone through a transformation. If you talk about India or globally for that matter. Let's come back to India. Broadly, the entire organization typically has gone through, three broad phases, three revolution, I would call them. The first one was, industrial revolution, wherein the focus was around earning a livelihood, and hence people were completely working very very hard, punching in 9 hours, 10 hours, and sticking to the guidelines and not challenging the status quo, just to ensure that they earn their livelihood and they get a job, and they continue to work in that job to take care of the family. Then came in the second phase, is your information phase. Typically, when we saw those IT services company, those best practices, and here it was not about survival. The main objective of working population then was to enhance quality of life, to take care of probably EMI or car loan and those kind of a thing. So survival plus quality of life, these two were taken care during information age. Now, if you remember, in 2008 we had a depression. We call it Great Depression of 2008. During that time, typically people said that there is a death, specifically when you talk about information age. Then information was very very easily and available freely to people. And if you talk about people learning new skills, they go through numerous tutorials and then they try and acquire those new skills. So information is available in abundance, and hence the phase that we currently are going through is popularly regarded as digital or social revolution. So what it means is everybody is in a cross boundary, cross culture, cross generational kind of a workplace scenario. Everybody is well connected. Information is available in abundance. What you are doing in isolation is no longer confined to your wisdom or your company's wisdom. It is available freely for others to find out. And one more important thing that I wanted to bring it to your notice is the loyalty. Very very abused and overused topic for discussion. Normally people argue that you talk about Gen Z, these guys are not loyal. They come and they join your company, but you cannot give a guarantee that after 3 months, after 6 months, they would still continue with you. Quite right. However, if you look at the loyalty as a variable, as a differentiator, then probably baby boomers were more loyal towards their employer. Again, pardon me if I'm sounding stereotype. However, my intent is to identify some clear distinction between those multi-generational workforce. So from that standpoint purely, baby boomers, their loyalty was with more with the organization. Then if you talk about Gen X and Gen Y, up to a large extent, their loyalty was towards the manager. Now cut to 2020, and specifically when we are debating what it takes to excite, what it takes to retain, what it takes to attract Gen Z talent, we must also understand their loyalty is neither to company nor to manager. Their loyalty is more towards the profession that they are in. Meaning, every employee, every incumbent in Gen Z probably would be more and more keen and more committed towards their profession. Now, what it means to practitioners like you and I, the learning for both of us is, if we can create excitement, if you can assign them any job which is in line with their aspiration, then probably you will not see them struggling, you will not see them disengaged, and you will also find some people going beyond call of duty, working for 18 hours, 10 hours. So that is what is the shift I am saying. So from loyalty standpoint, loyalty has shifted, if I may say so, probably a little theoretically, from organization to manager to right now to profession. So they are more loyal towards profession. So saying a generalized statement that they are not loyal is probably not the fair thing to do, specifically when we deal with Gen Yers. One more thing normally we came across, and which I find a myth, is people normally make passing comments that Gen Z is least concerned about community, about giving back to society. In my experience, I have seen probably me or probably baby boomers were very happy cutting a check and handing over to somebody and feeling happy that, hey, you know what, I have contributed to corporate social responsibility or giving back to community. That used to be probably by and large our way of looking at things. Now, when you look at Gen Z, the reality as against the myth that they are not concerned, Gen Z would want to get an experience. For them, the differentiator would be, okay, if I have contributed $100, I would want to understand where and how you have utilized my $100. And they also ask question, is there something I can do? I want to extend my volunteering services. And hence you would find Gen Z category of people. Normally we are seeing this change in young workforce, that they see a meaning in actually joining hands and doing it on the ground, rather than contributing and forgetting that yes, I have done my bit when it comes to giving back to community. One more interesting thing is about that flexibility piece. And job flexibility wise, they want more and more flexibility. Don't bind them with policies, blue books, and rule books, or tell them that this is our way of working. Either you're in or you're out basis this. So don't. I believe strongly that that might not go well, and it will not definitely help them to retain specifically Gen Z. And hence, my limited point there would be, if we can create a work and family life balance. And mind you, I have one more counter narrative to this. Normally, we talk about work and family life balance. But typically, for Gen Z, my feeling and my observation, basis my experiences, for them, work is life, provided we know what kind of a work and we got to allot them, and whether the work assignment that we are handing over to them has got plenty of meaning for them. If we can create meaning in the task, in the job, then work becomes life. And hence, you might have seen there are IT services firms, there are more e-commerce organizations voluntarily, if they can find an alignment, a meaning to what they are doing, if there is a larger problem, and if we can spend more and more time as HR fraternity and tell them, explain them how their contribution is linked to the big picture, or probably taking care of the customer problem, then the alignment becomes easier. And during those scenarios, circumstances, you would see work and family life balance, they do not really bother, and they say work is life, forget about work-life balance. Yeah. So the challenge is, can we do this for them? If we do, then at the end of the day, we are winners. Now, what are the other stuff which purely differentiates Gen Yers? Of course, as a corporate, if you're wanting to hire them, I know today they are globally occupying 24%, but I'm a big fan of Klaus Schwab, the founding chairman of World Economic Forum, and his book titled Fourth Industrial Revolution. When we talk about Fourth Industrial Revolution, then, and specifically when we talk about IoT, Internet of Things, or 3D printing, or probably robotics, then naturally these skills comes to Gen Z, and hence they would be the right kind of a fitment. Does that mean we'll get rid of all those baby boomers, Gen X and Gen Y? Undoubtedly no. Reason being, they bring in those much needed diversity, those years of experience of dealing with people, dealing with other challenges, or those you cannot take it out, and hence it is very, very important to have a right kind of a composition in organization, specifically when you are poised to take the organization to the next level of growth. However, at the time of attracting Gen Z, as an organization, if you can say that the technology that we use is very modern, very up to date, then probably that is something which excites Gen Z. I said Gen Z is super social. They are available in multiple forums. Before they join you, they do their groundwork. They want to know which organization they are joining, how and what kind of a technology we as an organization using. Is it modern? Is it outdated? These are certain stuff which would help them out in deciding whether they would want to join you or not. Even up to an extent that they Google, they do their research, and they try and find it out who is going to be my potential manager. What is his market position? What is his qualification? What has been his contribution to his profession? What is that people have to say about him? Is he a known person in the fraternity? These are some of the stuff. They, being social, being digital, all the time this comes very, very natural to them. And hence, my input to HR for all of us would be, if we can, so that we use the latest technology. If you can talk more about the technology, the product line, the kind of customer base we have, that would probably be one hook or one positive thing or competitive advantage for corporates to attract best of the talent. And because these guys are available in social media, and mind you, social media meaning, I said already, but probably till millennials, they are quite used to Facebook. But when you talk about Gen Z, are you available in Snapchat? Are you available in Instagram? Probably there were researches done specifically on Gen Z, wherein some 1,000 people participated, 1,000 respondents, and the outcome was very, very interesting. 90% of them, their first preference, specifically going social, being social, is to be present in Snapchat. They use extensively Snapchat. And second one, which is 72%, is Instagram. So forget about Facebook and all that. They are distant third. Probably from that standpoint, baby boomer, Gen X is probably a little outdated. Now, so learning for us is we need to reboot our online presence. If we have our corporate pages in Facebook, in LinkedIn, it's good, but probably you are not targeting Gen Z, and hence it is important to also start thinking and creating pages, corporate pages in Snapchat as well as Instagram. One more expectation of Gen Z category people is a healthy work and life balance. We talked about it, and specifically from that standpoint, I said work is life, provided we know how to create excitement in that work that they do and link it to the larger cause. Having said that, typically these guys, Gen Z category of people, they prefer taking, let's say, frequent breaks. I'm a solo traveler. Probably, I'll get into some sort of a creating my own YouTube channel, or probably I'll go and acquire some new skills. For that, I need frequent breaks. Fine. Whenever there is a requirement, probably I don't mind stretching it and probably giving my best. But give me also a little bit of flexibility. And from HR standpoint, if you can have flexible Gen Z enabled policies, people policies, more around flexibility and more around paternity leave, more around, because these are young bunch of people who would be first time father. Of course, this is an extreme example I'm giving, because Gen Z, the higher age bracket would be 25. But then we need to find out a whole lot of things which would really excite and revamp our existing people policies. Then comes the freedom, the empowerment piece. Once you determine the larger cost and tell them that, hey, these are the expected deliverables from you, then probably giving them a free hand. They are at their best when you completely empower them, you give them timely feedback, and you don't bother them too much with restrictions like, hey, you know what, you need to punch in 9 hours every day. That doesn't really work for that category of people. Now for HR, one solution fits all would not help. And any organization, including mine is a 180-year-old group organization called Times Group popularly, and my business is altogether a different one. It is in consumer internet and in more specifically in online real estate sector. If I have to talk about MagicBricks, my average age of workforce hovers around 38. So probably more number of millennials we have, more number of millennials as well as Gen Z. Now, very, very difficult for an organization to have one policy which would be applicable throughout multi-generational, multi-functional, multi-function in an organization. Meaning the policy that you have in your mind for product and tech team got to be different from let's say sales team. So broadly you would see that an organization culture within that. So if MagicBricks in an organization has an organization culture with certain set of values, the values would remain constant for everybody. But within a culture, it is possible that basis the function that you are in, you would see multiple subculture, existence of multiple subcultures within the culture. Similarly, policies also, when you frame one solution fits all, will not really work, and hence you're dealing with Gen X, Gen Yers, baby boomers, almost same, and then Gen Z now, which is even in our kind of a setup, roughly around 25 to 30% of them would be below the age of 25, and of course you can't employ anybody less than 18. So, but majority of them who are in the verge of starting their career, they fall in that kind of a category. So what they need is flexibility, probably recognition on a time basis. So if you can do that, if you can provide those things, then it is very, very easy for you to attract those talent. And Gen Z is also super open-minded, meaning they would embrace very happily diversity and inclusion. Probably there were little rigidity when we first introduced the concepts, when we first came across diversity and inclusion kind of concepts, and more diverse in terms of gender, in terms of sexual preferences, in terms of different ethnicity group and all of that. But now Gen Z, the good thing is they are super open-minded, and they embrace diversity and inclusion much more than any other generation. One more interesting differentiating factor is the authenticity. People want you, specifically Gen Z wants you to be more honest, more realistic, and don't borrow ideas because X and Y or your neighboring company has a unique identifier or differentiator, and then you think that that's going to work out. They want you probably during this difficult time also, when organizations, when job cuts were imminent and unavoidable, then few organizations have gone ahead and definitely reduced the headcount. If that is the typical example, how do we deal with Gen Z specifically? If there are certain category of people in Gen Z who would be impacted, then typically in this scenario, if you tell them the organization's current situation and why it is important for them to have cost optimization, or how they got to be surviving, they got to be recovering back, and they got to be excelling, and hence in that scheme of thing why it is important to let go certain percentage of people. If you go ahead and tell them with all honesty, that then definitely they would appreciate. They are very, very open-minded from that standpoint. But giving them any gyan, we used to do this in good old days we used to have this many people promoted, we gave those things. That doesn't really excite them, and they would be very, very easily, delinking themselves from those kind of stories. So these are some of the identifiable things which really excites them. And the trick lies in knowing, in understanding where exactly and how exactly we got to be exciting these people. If these are the things that motivates them, that excites them, if this is what they want from corporates, the sooner the better it is for us to probably start thinking, behaving, and act like one of them. Normally, one more typical case comes in that there is bound to be a little bit of friction when you have multi-generational workforce. Yers, Gen X would have a different mindset. Baby boomers will say, hey, gray-haired intellectuals, we have been there, done that, and these guys are going, these are relatively new kids on the block, and they are giving us gyan. How do we, make a move to have more customer footfall, better revenues? So these are the kind of typical conflict you would see. And my advice and my recommendation or my experience so far has been, when you put people from multi generations in one task force, wherein everybody would appreciate each other's contribution or relatively significance to an organization, then probably the potential conflict between multiple generations you can think of reducing. Now, when we talk about learning organization, modern organizations, where what matters is we have values like meritocracy. And in a meritocratic setup, who said what, how many years of experience you have, whether you are a DGM or a vice president or just a consultant at an entry level, these things hardly matter. And the sooner we realize those things, we embrace it, we make a movement, we move ahead, then the better it would be for us, for our respective businesses. I think broadly these are certain points that I had in back of my mind, and I thought I would share it with this target audience. But before I conclude, one more last point. Okay, we talked about all great things about the Gen Z population by and large, without stereotyping. But what are the disadvantages? Okay, more specifically, because everybody is networked, socially super active, but when it comes to the health and safety, and when I'm saying health, I mean both physiological as well as mental health. Instant gratification, instant happiness, and instant frustration. Instant frustration, disappointments can also lead to some extreme steps. Very, very important that, there is a technique called organizational catharsis. Very, very old concept called catharsis. Meaning, what it says is, suppressed feelings are not good for the mental health. Meaning, if you are angry, if you are upset, if you feel frustrated, depressed, allow people to vent out. If we allow people, the technique is called catharsis. If we allow people to vent it out, and mind you, in an organizational scenario, if you are allowing a young bunch of people to speak certain thing which is not of your liking, definitely you would not enjoy that. But then there is professional maturity. If we have to peacefully coexist, keeping in mind the organization's interest, then definitely we both need to come to a common platform. Entire workforce got to be coming to a common platform where we help them to speak their mind. And we do not brand them that, hey, you know what, they are negative. And culturally they are misfit. Allowing people to make mistakes, allowing people to act as a critique would only help us out in understanding that they are not negative. This is who they are. This is their natural dominating style. So the moment we understand, we have awareness and we embrace that, end of the day, we all are winners. That's all precisely, I thought, I should be sharing with the group. And 30 minutes was my allotted time. And I hope I'm on time. And I would than happy to take questions. Over to you, Saurabh.
Yes, sir. So, we're a little off time, but then, the insights were so interesting that we really lost a track of time in the whole process. And the best part was the whole extemporary way of you of really taking this whole presentation rather than following a structured PPT approach, which is again a great thing. I would really like to thank you, sir, for the interesting talk that you gave us. There are a lot of insights in terms of the behavioral and the psychological aspects of the different segments of the employees that you spoke about, especially Gen Zs, without hardly stereotyping them, which you always kept distance from, which was the great thing. But it was a really interesting talk, sir. And I would really like to thank you for the time that you've taken out. For the questions, sir, we have a Q&A session which is lined up right after this. And so we'll be asking everyone to, bring all the questions to the table in the next session
Sure.
that we have, which is Q&A session. Sir, I'll request you as well to get to the backstage and join the next session.
I'll do that, Saurabh, and thank you so much. Pleasure,
Thank you.
interacting with a live audience. I see quite a lot
Yeah,
of them, and
yeah, you
thanks
got
for
more than
having.
1,000 likes, sir. You got more than 1,000 likes for the talk that you gave. We can
Thank
see it on
you so much, Saurabh.
Okay. See you on the other side, sir. So you can browse it by
Sorry,
going.
sorry, I'm cutting it in between, but since I gave the lecture on Gen Z right now, I would really appreciate if young people like you can also call me Anil. I'll feel better.
Yeah, 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 of course.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. See you on the other side.